Right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the work session for the City Council, City of Wildwood for Monday, April 10, 2023. Ms. Eldridge, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Bowen,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni, Councilmember Nyan, Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo, Councilmember Flasher,
Here.
Councilmember Garitano, Councilmember Brost,
Here.
Councilmember Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Here.
Councilmember Jaxi, Councilmember Hopper, Councilmember Galani.
Right. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. Under information, before we get to action items, we have 13. Is there anything under information that anyone would like to talk about or about which you may have questions? Councilmember Edens.
Yes, just noting that the Bluffview Park project was on for information again, and it was asking for council input on if there should be an opening ceremony, and I think that would be delightful. I would like to suppress my support for such an event.
Any objection to an opening ceremony at Bluffview Park? Seeing none, we'll have an opening ceremony. Councilmember Brost.
Yeah, I guess, I'm not sure if it's here or maybe under miscellaneous, but I guess in going through, wouldn't the for information section, shouldn't that be where we might have some type of a report on investment activities?
That would be an ideal spot for that.
Because I'm honestly a little surprised that nothing is there. But I have a meeting scheduled Thursday with our interim city administrator and Dawn, and that'd probably be one of the items we could talk about.
Had we asked for something to be on that?
I had not asked,
Okay.
no.
Well, and are you thinking this is something that would be a perpetual item or just as needed basis, sort of?
Honestly, I don't know when it wouldn't be needed.
Okay.
So that's how I feel about it. I mean,
Okay.
there's a lot of money there and I just think it should be a routine report. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, one thing we might start doing is, the city administrator report that we get, we might consider having that added to the information section on a perpetual basis so our residents can see that. And if we did that, then we could put the investment aspect as part of that report. Would that be?
Well, I had reached out to the city attorney as to what are the actual requirements, because we're trying to follow the model of the state. So, I wouldn't have any objection to what you're saying, Mayor, but I think we're trying to align with their recommended procedures,
For sure.
and that
Okay.
includes reporting.
Okay.
So,
What are your thoughts about having the city administrator report under information for each? Of course, that's done on a weekly basis. So maybe it would be sort of a monthly, maybe not the same thing, with all the detail, but something that would on a macro level, let residents know the gist of your reports over the past month to the council. All right. Anything else under information? Okay. Moving to action items. Actually, before we get to that, I did have one I wanted to, Bill 2789, the liquor sales bill, the changes in the rules for that. I thought it might be helpful, maybe use City Attorney Young or Mr. Vinich or whomever's responsible for that to let us know the gist of that and kind of why that's on the agenda. City Attorney Young.
Thank you, Mayor. This bill spent a couple of months at the Admin Public Works Committee reviewing really what are wholesale changes to the city's liquor license regulations. Our regulations, the city's regulations have not been amended since, I believe it was mid-90s. And state law has made leaps and bounds in terms of the types of licenses that issues, the process of the licenses that are issued. So this is really intended to bring the city's ordinances up to speed with state law on liquor licensing in terms of the types of licenses that are issued. And by way of example, and this is from requests that certain licensees in the city have asked for, it allows for certain additional hours for Sunday sales at retail. It allows for catering licenses to be issued for special events, all things that have not been allowed in the city previously that will be now. In addition, we're streamlining the process in the code so that we do not have public hearings anymore on liquor licenses. They are really administrative approvals done through the city clerk's office.
Okay, any questions on that? Councilmember Dodwell?
Just one question. If they're going through the city clerk's office, if the city clerk has issue or question, does she have the ability to bring that before council if she feels that they need to review anything?
There is an appeal process, yes.
Okay, I just want to give her some
Mm-hmm.
support.
Anything else? Okay, I just thought it might be helpful for everyone to get the gist of that bill and why it was on the agenda for our main meeting. Okay, going into action items, the first is the strategic plan. Councilmember Clark, are we ready to pass this?
Think we are. So in 2020, we started Mayor Boland started this plan. And it is a living and breathing strategic plan. So we have to update it as we go. And we found after going over some things with the city staff, we found some areas that needed to be changed. Some of the line items are just too vague. And we wanted to make sure that the people who made those suggestions had a chance to update them. Some need to be consolidated, some need to be broken down into additional line items, and some just are typical maintenance items. Please check your email after today, and I will send out the suggestions to each of the committees to look at that people have sent to me, so that you can, in each committee, you can add those suggestions. And please note that Rick Brown and I added one column, % completion of the easement acquisition, because we found there was a need for that column. So that said, I just would move that we take the strategic plan draft number 2 and accept it if everyone's in agreement with 4 points. 1, using the city's updated and current capital improvement plan, project summary sheets, the responsible city staff and responsible committee chair update the matrix every 4 months, as we talked about last month, to include all the sub-goal information. And a note that we need to add wards to that summary sheet that they have now. They have current summary sheets for the projects, but they just haven't been updated for a while. And check boxes that shows that if it is on the strategic plan or if it is on the capital improvement plan. Number 2, develop a written standardized operating process for updating the strategic plan every 4 months, so we know what to do. The committee chair, along with their committee, knows what to do every 4 months. 3, at the first update, revise all the sub goals, making them SMART goals. And 4, verify that funding and work coordinate with the priority rank that we've given to them. And that's it.
All right. So everyone, I guess, has had a chance to look at this. Thank you again, Councilmember Clark and others who've worked with you on this to get it to a great level. Councilmember Dodwell.
Sorry, I just had a question on, can you define what SMART goal means?
Yes, and in your packet, I think in your on the agenda, we had that attached. SMART goals are specific, S is specific, M is measurable, A is attainable, R relevant, and T is time bound.
It's all right. All good. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the strategic plan as presented? Made by Councilmember Brost, seconded by Councilmember McCutcheon. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, with that, just a note, the color code red means late, as you can see. So those of you on committees that have late items, those of you city team members that have late items, if that lateness can somehow be remedied, please make note of that so we can move that to something other than red. All right, Councilmember Clark.
I'm sorry. On your latest revision, the where you've got input into the columns in red, that's what was updated from the city staff, the new information that they had given me. So if it's still in black, it's what they had originally had in there, but I only changed what information that they had available. So all of that needs to be reviewed every 4 months. And it won't be that much work if you do it every 4 months.
Certainly should flow a lot better now that we have a very good document in place. Councilmember Rambo, would you want to say something?
Yes, just Ms. Clark did a lot of work on this and we wouldn't have gotten here without her. And I just wanted to say thanks to her for the effort.
Thank you. Our Councilmember Dodwell.
Can we put this on the city administrator's to-do list to bring this once every 4 months?
It's already done with the city clerk.
Oh, city clerk. That's even better.
That works. All right. Moving next to charging for food and drink at 2023 sponsored events. Mr. Vintage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, as you all are probably aware, this particular topic has been discussed at many levels at the Coffee with the Mayors, at the Planning and Parks Committee, at the Program Budget Committee, and then finally even at the Wildwood Celebration Commission meetings. Ultimately, out of all of those inputs, the Planning and Parks Committee is presenting a recommendation tonight that for the upcoming concert series, which is the series of main events, that a ticket process be established and that all attendees who want either a hot dog and chips, shaved ice, or kettle corn will purchase tickets at $1 a piece, and then they will redeem those tickets at the different vendors. The estimates are that through this process, we will generate anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000 to offset charges associated with those events. I would note that the Program Budget Committee under the chairmanship of Mr. Garitano will be meeting this Wednesday. And I believe by May, you will be seeing a number of other fee increases, changes to our events, et cetera. But tonight, the department is seeking an endorsement of this particular approach so that we can implement it by the May 19th concert. Thank you.
And I guess this is a question for City Attorney Young. Is this just something we can do by routine motion, or does it need to have some sort of resolution with it?
Because of the resolution that approved the city assisted ward meetings, I believe it should be done by resolution there.
The city assisted ward meeting.
We have a policy that's been adopted and it should be amended.
City assisted ward meetings, what does that have to do with it? How's that relate to this?
And maybe I'm confused on the issue, but my understanding that was part of the impetus for this discussion was at those particular meetings. Mr. Vunish can correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think.
Am I wrong on that?
Mr. Young, yeah, this has to do with just us giving away hot dogs and different food at our events. And there's a desire to charge for it and cover.
Oh, okay. My mistake, and I apologize. Then no, there wouldn't have to be any formal action. It would just be part of the budgetary items when these events are planned.
So the council could make this decision as a matter of policy.
Right.
Okay. And then one other just logistical or group, I guess, technical question. So it shows an estimated budget impact of 1,000. But he said 10,000. 1,000 per event. Okay. That's okay. Okay. So the just in case anyone from the public is looking at this, so the agenda shows implication is 1,000, but that's $1,000 per event on an annual basis. Mr. Vintage, I think you said it would be approximately 10,000 intake to the city as a result of this. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. If I said $1,000, I misspoke. We anticipate generating anywhere from $2,500 to $2,800 per concert. And there will be 4 of those events. So that is where that $10,000 to $12,000 number comes from. And my apologies, I misspoke.
No, you said that correctly. It's just that the agenda says 1,000.
Oh. Well, that's a mistake on my part as well. So my
Okay, no,
apologies.
that's not a problem. Just want to get all cleared up. Councilmember Bartoni,
So do we want to have a motion to move?
You can make a
forward this as
motion.
Policy then? or-
Correct.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make that motion that we move forward.
Okay,
with the
so we have a motion to move forward with the charging of at events for food and drink, seconded by Councilmember Ottenberg. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Farmer?
Yeah, in theory, I think that this is a fine idea. My concern is that I don't know that we've got, 5 weeks or something before our next event. And like, there's a lot of logistical stuff to figure out, or people that come to concerts aren't used to this kind of thing. There's going to be a whole lot of confusion about, do they have tickets, where the tickets come from, how are they paying for tickets, who are they paying for tickets? It's a lot. I'm nervous that rolling this out poorly kind of handicaps this thing and the events pretty substantially moving forward.
Mr. Bennett, are you comfortable or not that the rollout of this can happen with the first event for this year?
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate Mr. Farmer's concern, and that concern has been echoed here in the Department of Planning and Parks. Chris Nager, Stacy Chansky, Melanie Ripto, and I have been looking at this for a bit. We think we're ready to go, but certainly if we get to that stage where there is a problem, we'll let the council know and why we may have to defer it, but we don't think we will. I think we'll be ready.
Yeah, the flip side to that too, and ultimately there may not be anything we can do about this, but there could be more confusion created by someone who comes to the first event, they don't get charged, and they come to the second event and they do. So I would say, if at all possible, for consistency standpoint, if it can be rolled out for the full season, so much the better. But I think if everyone's comfortable with it, that's why we have the team we do, is just let them use their better judgment, and we'll see where it goes with concern noted. Councilmember Bertolino.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of this for a couple of reasons. One is I think I hate to say this, it makes us look a little cheap. If the city is in such bad shape that we got to charge $1 for a hot dog, I think that sends a somewhat embarrassing message to our citizens, especially when they've been used to having it freebie for so long. So I don't think it gives us enough punch money-wise to make up for the impression that people might get from, gee, why is my city all of a sudden charging me $1 for a hot dog? I'd rather see us put our energy and time into the park maintenance and stormwater management tax incentive or initiative and get that on the ballot and get that passed. That's the real moneymaker for us in terms of maintaining these things. And with that, this 10,000 that we might raise on hot dogs is minuscule. And so I think it's a bad message. Maybe because I'm old and I like freebies. Do I get a senior discount if is mine 50 cents instead of $1 if I vote for this? No, I'm sorry. I'm saying maybe facetious, but I really don't think it's a good idea. Thank you.
And just for clarification, this would be residents, but also non-resident. Councilmember Edens.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Are we planning on utilizing something like Square or anything like that? I know there's a lot of people that have gone cashless, and you like to assume that everybody has $5 on them, but not necessarily everyone will. And with that, isn't there a percent that they take for the service? So I was just wondering if that was factored into the profit that we were making, whatever would be deducted for using a credit card processing service.
Mr. Vintage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city does have an account with Square. We use it for a number of our events like the hikes and runs. There is a percentage that is added to each transaction. And we basically went on the low side of the estimate on the sale of hot dogs, chips, shaved ice, and kettle corn, so we could take into account that fee, I think, of 2 or 3%.
Okay. My only other comment is that, you know, if we choose to not offer something for free, then we have to provide a space for food trucks and an adequate number of them. And in the past, we haven't budgeted for any guarantees if we don't meet a minimum of sales. So again, if we want to get out of the business of providing it, then we need to kind of be willing to put up the money up front to another for-profit group that will provide if we can't meet the minimum sales, which is also, you know, an option. And honestly, food trucks are a draw for people to come. I'd like to see us expand food trucks at other events as a separate sidebar, but thanks.
Councilor Bartoni.
Thank you. And Mayor, I agree with you. I think it would be even more confusing if we had it free in May and not in June, but the city does a very good job of advertising these events, whether it's on social media and emails. And I think we just want to make sure that this part is advertised, you know, free concert, come and get your hot dogs for $1, and just put that in all of our notifications out to residents so that when they're at the event, it's not the first time they're seeing and hearing about it.
Councilor Dodwell.
I was going to go along with what Councilmember Bertolino said. We have to advertise this starting now.
Bartoni.
I'm sorry. If I know you look so much alike.
Sorry.
I get confused. But let's take it to a vote. I also agree with what Mr. Bertolino said too, is it's not that much cash that we're going to get out of charging for this, and it's a lot of effort. And then finally, why do we have to do tickets? Why can't people just walk up with their dollar and pay at whatever venue they want to go to? And is the reasoning for that because we are going to have a limited supply? I don't know that anybody's ever gotten upset when we've run out of popcorn for free. So I don't know that we really need to do tickets and add that hassle to the staff.
Mr. Vintage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Dodwell, the city will still be subsidizing a portion of the cost, particularly for shaved ice and the kettle corn. It's probably a third of the overall cost will be subsidized, but the dollar figure was what the Planning and Parks Committee and the Program Budget Committee kind of settled on just as a starting point. Certainly, if we find that it's not enough, or if there's an easier method, we can certainly at some point, whether it's fiscal year 2024, integrate that better process in. We're hoping this works and will work well for the start. Thank you.
Councilor Nyan.
I just want a clarification. I noticed water is not listed on here, so I'm assuming water will still be free.
Mr. Vintage.
Ms. Nyan, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Nyan, we were still planning on offering water free. It's the least expensive item that we purchase. And just given the heat of the summer, we want to make sure people feel like they can hydrate and come healthy and leave healthy. Thank you.
Sure.
Do you think we should be careful because the items do run out? So I don't want a family coming up buying $10 for the ticket, waiting an hour thinking we don't need to hurry, bring it up later. They go up to use their tickets for their hot dogs and now they're stealing 10 tickets. Obviously, they can spend on those things. That it just safety.
Mr. Vintage, he didn't hear that. The concern she expressed was if someone buys a batch of tickets and then by the time they get to the booth, the hot dogs are all gone. So there would need to be management. We don't want people upset if that were to happen. So they need to have plenty of hot dogs.
Yes, and
Basically.
Mr. Mayor, we'll never sell more tickets than we have hot dogs. Whereas with shaved ice and kettle corn, they can make as much as anybody wants. So we are always pretty much guaranteed. We've never run out of those two. We've run out of hot dogs, yes. So we'll make sure that we sell the same number of tickets as the same number of hot dogs. Thank you.
Councilmember Flasher.
Katie and Tracy made good points. I don't know how many of you have been to these events and waited in the Kona ice line, but that line is ridiculous. And so now if you're waiting in a long line to get your ticket and then waiting in a long line to get the Kona ice, it might just say, to heck with it. I don't really want to do this anymore. As far as the Kona ice stuff goes, the other things have always seemed to move quicker and easier. It's just something to kind of make a note of.
Yep. Councilor Rottenberg.
Just wanted to mention that in addition to being a potential revenue generator by charging these fees, that one of the purposes that this fee structure provides us with is a way to sort of control demand. When the price of something is zero, the demand tends to rise to infinity. By charging a modest fee for the hot dogs, we can assure that a lot of people aren't going to come up and just ask for 4 or 5 hot dogs when in fact they only need 2 or 3 for their family.
Thank you. And I was going to just mention something on the flip side. I think, so Joe, let me, before I say this, how many locations will there be for the sale of the tickets? In other words, how many people will be doing that? It's a 2-part question. And will they be part of the city team? And then depending on your answers, I may say something about that.
Mr. Mayor, as you know, we have the city tent where we hand out water and soda. We're going to add additional tent and table space for the sale of the tickets. It will be team members that are doing that transaction.
Okay. Well, since I trust the team members, then I'm going to say this. I think I would be comfortable, and I guess I'd just throw this out maybe as a question, but I would be comfortable with, the city team members exercising judgment relative to someone who may approach for tickets. If they are, for example, some of our first responders that serve the residents in our city, or someone that is patently evidencing a case of need, that you would have the authority to not charge on an intermittent basis for those isolated situations. Would everyone be okay with that? Good with that? I mean, I don't think we're going down too much of a slippery slope with it. I think that we have good people on the team who can make that judgment. So sounds like Councilmember Gross.
Yeah, I guess just one other question on
Assuming this passes.
on the tickets. If someone was to purchase tickets, but they don't use them, would they be good at the next event?
Mr. Bros, we were anticipating actually changing the color of the tickets for each of the events. And so I think we have talked internally about a redemption policy. So at the end of the night, if you haven't used your tickets, we can return the fee.
Councilmember Galani.
Yeah, I guess I kind of agree with Councilmember Bertolino to an extent regarding free versus not free, but I also am not opposed to potentially charging. I would say, from what I heard, Mr. Vunich had mentioned that even with charging $1, our cost is substantially higher than that. So we're only subsidizing a minimal portion. I would advocate on the other side of that to say either we charge whatever our cost is or don't charge anything. Because by charging $1 and then the city still let's just say it costs us $3. And so we're charging $1. We're getting zero credit for the other $2 we're investing into it, because if somebody's paying, they're assuming we're charging them whatever our cost is, and they're not aware that the city's actually investing more money into it. And so I say it's either nothing or all. Like, so if it costs us $3 a hot dog to do it and we want to charge, then let's charge $3. And then let's also make a policy that says, if you're a veteran or military service or first responder, you don't have to pay. And that's across the board for anybody that meets that category. So it's not like a one-off thing here or there, but I would say it's all or nothing, because doing the nitpick piece, like I said, you're still paying a significant amount out of the city's budget and you're getting zero credit from the public for it, because they're assuming if you're charging whatever your cost is.
So Mr. Vintage, what was the rationale for the city subsidizing a third of it?
Actually, we're subsidizing 2/3, Mr. Mayor. I'm not doing
sorry,
very
2/3.
well being clear tonight. So for example, shaved ice and the kettle corns are about $1.60 a piece. So the dollar will cover about 2/3, leaving the other third to be subsidized by the city. We actually break even on the hot dogs and buns. They're about $1 a piece.
So Mr. Vintage, the question is, what was the rationale for doing city subsidy as opposing to passing all the cost in total?
More so than anything, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Bartoni can speak to this as well. I think the committee was feeling, let's try this first, maybe walk before we run and kind of introduce it and then kind of see how we are at the end of the season and make amendments or changes then.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, which is to move forward with the charging with city subsidy. Did you want to make an amendment to that?
Yeah, I would say if we're going to charge, we should charge whatever our cost is.
Okay.
Or not charge at all.
And for information, Mr. Vintage, do you know off the top of your head what the budgetary impact of that would be?
Well, certainly, Mr. Mayor, as I mentioned, the other two items, shaved ice and kettle corn, is about $1.60 a bag. So obviously it's going to be a little more logistics and making change and things along those lines if we don't use credit cards or people don't want to use credit cards. But all in all, we'll do whatever the council wants to basically cover the concerts and make as best a process as we can. Thank you.
So the question is what the budgetary impact would be by charging in full. I'm assuming that would be about 30,000 as opposed to 10,000. Is that correct?
It's probably going to be above that $20,000 to $22,000 amount. So again, recalling that we're anticipating anywhere from about $10,000 to $12,000 at $1 a piece. We're adding 60 cents on two of the items. So I think we'll see an increase, obviously, but I don't think we'll reach that $30,000, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so somewhere between 20 and 30. Is there a second to the motion?
Yes, sir.
Seconded by Councilmember Ottenberg. So we'll need to have at this point discussion. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Councilmember Clark, only on the amendment.
Okay, I'm trying to fit this into the amendment. So if we charge the full amount, what if, I'm just thinking as a person, if I had something that said, here's how much it costs us for the hot dogs, and it's a voluntary basis to pay for it. So here's the box, voluntarily put the money in. I think that in Wildwood, we would get a lot more that way than if we charge.
Okay, so that's not really on the amendment. But nice try trying to fit it into the box. Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, I was gonna weigh in on the fogey vote with Mr. Bertolino, but I'm confused by the actual amendment because he said either charge nothing or charge the going rate. And so I'm having trouble parsing that.
That's a good point. Are you suggesting?
Yeah, I'm suggesting we should charge whatever our cost is.
So that's the amendment.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other discussion on the amendment? Let's do a roll call on the amendment.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni.
No.
Councilmember Nyan. Councilmember Farmer. Councilmember McCutcheon. Councilmember Rambo. Councilmember Flasher.
No.
Councilmember Garitano. Councilmember Bros.
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell.
No.
Councilmember Bertolino.
No.
Councilmember Galani.
Yes.
So the amendment fails. So now we're back to the main motion, which is to charge with city subsidy. Seeing no further discussion, please call the roll. Motion.
Councilmember Bartoni.
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan. Councilmember Farmer.
No.
Councilmember McCutcheon. Councilmember Rambo. Councilmember Flasher.
No.
Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell.
No.
Councilmember Bertolino.
No.
Councilmember Galani.
No.
Motion fails. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember. I think it still failed. Fails by one vote, so we will not be charging. Moving next to bid specifications and plans for the Essen Log Cabin, Mr. Venich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, as you recall, it's been a number of years ago, the Karst family, which is related to the Essens, donated the family cabin that was located on Route 109. Ultimately, a thief helped us disassemble it, removed it from the city, but thanks to our county police, was recovered. It has been in storage since then, and the Historic Preservation Commission has been working very hard to ultimately reassemble it. Over the course of the last year, the Historic Preservation Commission has provided to City Council a number of letters regarding the Essen Log Cabin. First and foremost, its location, now to be in Village Green, and ultimately its reassembly. Tonight, the Historic Preservation Commission is presenting to City Council a recommendation, a favorable recommendation to engage Pattern Ives to do the design, engineering plans, and bid specifications for the reassembly. The amount of that contract would be $38,000, which was anticipated as part of this fiscal year's budget. If there are any questions or comments, the department would be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Any questions or comments, or if not, a motion to move forward with the agreement? Councilor Dodwell.
I know you don't like me asking questions so much, but
Oh, no. You ask all the questions.
do we have to make a motion first?
No, go ahead.
Okay. You've got listed here, Joe, under other services, 2 additional line items. Do those need to be included with this entire vote that we're taking right now, or can those be held off to a later date? Maybe even a
Dodwell?
later year.
Pardon me. Pardon my interruption, ma'am. Ms. Dodwell, both of those were not supported by the Historic Preservation Commission. I did include them on the letter just so you could see what else was available if the City Council should choose to pursue it.
Any other questions?
No, I'll make a motion to pass.
You make a motion to move forward with it, with the agreement? Okay, seconded by Councilmember Rambo. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. That takes us to the Internet Implementation Committee. So this committee has been very diligent in wanting to do its job, but because of various technical issues, it hasn't been able to really affect that as a formally approved committee. So my recommendation to the council is that the committee be disbanded with the understanding that any member of that committee or any other member of the council can participate in a call or meeting with Spectrum to get updates and those kinds of things. Any questions? If not, we would need a motion to disband the committee. Councilmember Bartoni.
Well, can you just repeat that, please? I'm not sure I followed.
So the committee, as a formal committee, is not able to meet collectively because it would constitute a quorum. So that's resulted in one person having a meeting, next person having a meeting, the next person having a meeting. And so I think the way to fix it would be to not have a formal committee. And if those 3 or anyone else on the council wants to, or I want to meet with, or have a conference call with Spectrum, then it could do it. And the key is not having it formalized as a. Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, the status meetings with Charter took place at an inconvenient time on Friday during the day. And so I was the designated attendee from the group. This relieves us of that cumbersome nonsense that we had to deal with, and everybody can now come to the meetings. But I will say that the situation has improved pretty dramatically the last couple of weeks. And I anticipate much smoother sailing. So I don't think the committee is necessarily required any longer. So I'd like to make the motion to approve the disbanding of the Internet Committee, if that's.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilmember Ottenberg. Any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Martoni?
My only other question would be like this group instead of a committee, are they still gonna like, I don't think report to the council is the correct terms, but just like provide, like, how are we gonna know what they're doing?
I think that would come most likely from our city administrator or from the designated individual other than the city administrator that our interim city administrator is going to appoint. That purpose. Certainly, if the members of the council that attend these meetings or participate in the conference calls want to, get something on the work session agenda, all I have to do is ask and we put it on there. But I think practically speaking, it's going to come from the city administrator or his designee, which we're going to talk about in a moment, his designee for heading up, just like we do with waste management, the Spectrum project, other than the city administrator for several reasons. Okay, we have a first and a second. Councilmember Rambo.
I think this is a much less cumbersome approach, and I'm looking forward to discussing the person of the contact person. But my intention is to attend all the meetings anyway, and if I see anything going amiss or awry, I'll bring it to the council. So that's my personal commitment to the council.
Thank you. Any other discussion? See no discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion to disband the committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. City Administrator Lee, do you want to give any update? You don't have to. I was going to give you the opportunity. Do you want to give an update on your selection or where you are with someone, on our city team here at City Hall that will be designated as the liaison to all of our residents for this particular project, the Internet Implementation Project?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I am personally still taking those inquiries, and luckily we have actually made quite a bit of progress in the past 2 weeks of getting back to individuals. At this time, it is still in review of who will be appointed as that individual, taking into a couple different variables, but by the next council meeting for sure, we should have that appointment ready to go.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Okay. That takes us to a receipt and file, Rieger Farm subdivision, Mr. Benich.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, the Planning and Zoning Commission is providing to the members tonight its recommendation report with action regarding Rieger Farm subdivision. This particular subdivision is on a 37-acre tract of land located on the south side of Rieger Road, east of Wild Horse Creek Road. The proposal includes a total of 7 lots on the 37 acres. All of the lots will exceed 4 acres in size per the Department of Natural Resources review relative to groundwater and wastewater treatment. The road that is intended to serve these 7 lots meets the rural roadway standards of the city. There is an intent to dedicate additional land area for Rieger Road right-of-way, and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary plat. Their approval did contain 2 conditions relating to the natural resource protection standards and the tree preservation plan, both of which asked for additional areas on the lots to be preserved. We believe, that being the commission and the Department of Planning, that can be achieved and still provide optimum locations for the new homes. If there are any questions, the department is available to answer them at this time. And thank you. And thanks to Mr. Newberry for bringing up the graphic.
Any questions on that? All right. So that concludes everything under action for the work session. Is there anything on the agenda for the main meeting? Any of the bills that any member of the council has any question about or would like to discuss? Councilmember Bertolino.
Yeah, the alleys,
I'm glad you brought that up. Yes.
Were we going to make a change in that? or-
We were, and I think there was some miscommunication there. So the intent was that the city attorney was going to work with the team members here at City Hall, as well as trustees and residents that had been at our meeting expressing concern about it, to try to find a way, if possible, to structure the legislation in a way that would be palatable to both the city and our residents. That has not happened. And so and I didn't find out about that until after this was already on the published agenda. So my recommendation will be to postpone resolution 2023-4 to the next council meeting to give the city attorney time to do that. And I wasn't anticipating there being any objection to that, since this is not an urgent pressing matter. But thank you for bringing that up. So when we get to that, I'm going to recommend we pull it from the consent agenda and have it postponed. Any questions about that? All right. Anything else on the main meeting agenda you want to ask a question about? So one item, it's the biggest budgetary item, I think, the Bill 2788, Mr. Brown. Where's Mr. Brown? There's Mr. Brown. Welcome, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
2788, 290,000 and change, affecting wards 1 and 6 for some significant engineering and prep plans for left turn lanes. Is there anything about that you'd like to say at this point, given the size of that?
I would be glad to say a few words if that's what you like. This is the design and engineering contract for the left turn lane improvement project on Route 100. This would be adding left turn lanes at 4 intersections on Route 100, the 2-lane section essentially west of Route T. We did obtain MoDOT cost share funds for this improvement, so we can get reimbursed for the amount of about 50% of our costs for design and construction, or about $1.4 million.
Okay. Any questions for Rick on that? Okay. Councilmember Dodwell.
In regards to Bill 2786, that's the hard court in the Great Meadow. Since we have a new builder that's going to be putting in a hard court in town center, would it be more cost beneficial and environmentally friendly not to put a hard court that close to the creek along that meadow?
Mr. Brown.
I know we've approved, but I'm just questioning.
Now, what bill, you're talking about a different bill. Right. Okay. No, that's okay. I probably didn't hear you. All right. So that would be
Second reading tonight.
Yeah, so that would be
Kind of blew through it at the last meeting. Or no, it is under new business. My apologies.
Yeah, so that's Mr. Vintage. So Mr. Vintage, any concerns? Did you hear Ms. Dodwell's comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and certainly the development that's being proposed by Greenberg and Mr. Cohn does include 2 pickleball courts as part of it. The details on how those pickleball courts will be assigned, meaning will they be publicly available or just for the residents of the project, hasn't yet been determined. But certainly that's a conversation that the department can have as quickly as possible and provide that information to City Council. Ms. Dodwell, I do want to hopefully alleviate any of your fears. Both the Department of Public Works, the park designer, and the Department of Planning and Parks spent a great deal of time trying to ensure that the installation of that impervious surface for the hardcourt areas would not impact Bottom Creek. Obviously, if it does, we've all failed, and that's not our goal. But certainly, if there are alternatives and those alternatives want to be explored, we'll do our best to help the city council reach a conclusion. Thank you.
Councilmember Farmer.
Yeah, just I guess kind of along those lines, I happened to be in Kansas City this weekend and I went to a pretty fun pickleball place. I played some pickleball. It was in the middle of a nice little part of town. A lot of people were there doing a lot of different things. I guess I'm wondering, we have this great town center that we're working to get developed very hard. We've had a few projects come and go. I'm just wondering if, this is an opportunity for us to take a project that I think in general, everybody really likes, but there are a few concerns about, and work to put that in a place that generates income and activity in a place that needs that generated. So I'm certainly not opposed to pickleball, although I did hurt my shoulder and was told it was a easy sport to play. They might have lied. But I do think that I am a little concerned about putting a court at a place that's removed from everywhere when we have an opportunity to maybe put one in a place that is certainly capable of taking on parking and getting people into restaurants and things like that. I don't know if there's a unique opportunity for us to partner with our developers and get a bigger court put here as compared to having a little court here and then a big court there. And what do people do? I just feel like it's an awful big investment and we have a pretty interesting opportunity to help foster a development here that we maybe haven't been able to do in the past.
So I had originally planned before this discussion under new business to suggest, because I did not think they would be controversial, to having all the first readings done in unison. But what my plan now will be to recommend to you that we do that, except we pull 2786 and do that singularly, given the discussion here at the work session. Any objection to that approach? Okay. All right. So that, I think if no one else has anything, I think that takes us to a few minutes to take a break here with an adjournment. Good work session. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn? Made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Nyan. Non-debatable motion. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? All right, so we'll start promptly at 6:30. Thank you. Right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the City Council meeting for the City of Wildwood for Monday, April the 10th, 2023. Ms. Elders, please call the roll.
Mayor Boland,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Here.
Councilmember Nian, Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo.
Here.
Councilmember Flasher.
Here.
Councilmember Garitano,
Here.
Councilmember Roast,
Here.
Councilmember Edens.
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Here.
Councilmember Jaxi, Councilmember Hopper, Councilmember Galani.
Here.
All right, excellent. Welcome again. Beautiful Wildwood evening. We are extremely honored this evening to have Boy Scout Troop 677 with us that is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please place your right hand over your. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beauregard, would you grace?
All right. Thanks to them so much for being here with us this evening to do that. The minutes, the next item on the agenda is on the consent agenda portion of the meeting. That brings us to public participation. Public comment is a valuable component of our meeting. Anyone who wishes to speak must indicate they would like to do that by completing a card and giving it to the city clerk, or raising your hand if you're joining us by Zoom. When your name is called, please state your name and ward. To ensure that all who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, there is a 5-minute time limitation, and I will let you know when the time limit is reached. If you have any questions for us, please mention that during your remarks and identify the official that you would like to respond. That official will make a note of it, and at the conclusion of public participation, any official who chooses to respond will have 3 minutes to do so as to all questions directed to that official. The official may also choose to respond to your questions after tonight's meeting, and the city may post any responses on the city council page of our website. And finally, please be respectful to others in making your remarks. This means that interrupting others and using profane and abusive language are prohibited. And I want to thank everyone in advance for following these. First speaker card, please.
The first speaker card is Vicky Robleski.
Good evening. I'm Vicky Robleski. I live at 17227 Windsor Crest. I'm in Ward 1. I am also the president of the Windsor Crest Subdivision Association, and I am representing them here this evening. I have fellow board member and residents here with me tonight. I just wanted to make a few comments in regards to the alleys. I wanted to start by thanking Mr. Vunich and Mr. Lee for taking time out of their busy day last week to meet with Jim Van Nest and myself. We really appreciate it. I also wanted to thank Mayor Boland for responding to our emails. It's my understanding that while the policy on public dedication of private streets still does not have the wording change that we requested to recognize board and trustees, that you are looking at it again, and we truly appreciate it that you're addressing our request. So we agree with the postponement until next month, when you can have time to look at the wording and can be approved at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card, please.
The next speaker card is Joy Wilcox.
She's at the public hearing.
The next speaker card is Aaron Wagner, who's also speaking on the public hearing item. The next speaker card is Jane Finnegan.
Wait a minute. Are you sure Mr. Wagner is on the public? Hold on a second. So, I'm sorry. Well, that may be wrong, because the public hearing relates to Bill 2790. That's Miss Wilcox. He's on 2785. That's not a public hearing item. So I think he would be in order now.
Okay.
Mr. Wagner.
So Ms. Finnegan, if you could just wait just a moment, you gotta take these in
Absolutely.
order. Mr. Wagner, would you like to please come forward?
Hi, my name is Aaron Wagner with BFA Land Survey and Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the Campbells, who own property on Model Realty Road. This would be ordinance bill number 2785, just requesting a second reading tonight to approve the boundary adjustment plat. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker card, please.
The next speaker card is Jane Finnegan.
Good evening. Thank you all. I'm Jane Finnegan. I represent Ward 5, and I truly represent the residents on the western border of Rainforest Drive. We back to the new development, which is beautiful. They have lots of really full evergreen trees. In Wildwood, as you guys just did, we all know appearances are important. How we as a city appear to residents and even non-residents was just voted on in the work session. We want everyone to think well of us. We want to look good, and we want to put our best foot forward. And as homeowners, that's what we've always tried to do over in Evergreen. We may be one of the oldest subdivisions. Well, we love our neighborhood. We used to have the privilege to back to trees. Now we back to a 6-foot vinyl fence. The appearance of this 6-foot vinyl fence on top of a 6-foot incline in the back of my house makes us all feel like we're in prison. Trees, we knew we would be losing them 5 years ago when we heard them all go down. The fence was supposed to be a berm. That's what the developer agreed to, was a berm. Now there are houses within 20 feet, some 10 because ordinances were succumbed. I don't know the verbiage. But the likelihood that we're going to get a berm is slim to none. But I would ask each and every one of you to fight for us, because we've been fighting for years. We tried to. A berm is nothing when you only have 20 feet in between you. But when you wake up in the morning and all you see is a 6-foot vinyl fence and black rooftops, it changes your lifestyle. It's not what you bought into, and we were supposed to maintain our lifestyles. The developer did not do. He did not uphold his part of the bargain. We as residents of Evergreen, we upheld our part of the bargain. We waited 5 years. And Mr. Vunich, I would like to know when we are going to at least get evergreens and maybe a little bit more dirt. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card, please.
Next speaker card is Michael Whalen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the council. I am speaking tonight in regard to, I wanted to respectfully request a second reading of Bill 2783. I've been before this board or this council many times. I've never asked for a second reading before. I certainly understand it's no insignificant request. We tried to, we were hoping to be on the agenda last month, but for some reason we were unable to make it. I think there were too many items or something. So just we've got clients, we've got houses we're trying to start. Joe and the staff have been working with us to help us in that regard. So I'd really appreciate the opportunity to get a second reading of that ordinance this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker card.
I don't have any more speaker cards.
Okay, do we have anyone online, Travis, that wants to speak?
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Babb just raised her hand.
Okay. Not working.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Ms. Babb, if you'll accept the request to promote yourself to panelist when I send it.
Okay. All right, tried 5 times. Okay, so that concludes public participation. Moving next to mayor announcements and appointments. We have an Arbor Day proclamation somewhere. Here we go. The city is a tree city, as you probably know. And by the way, I forgot to mention, thanks to all of you for coming to public participation and speaking, those who did. So one of the things that we have to do each year to retain our tree city status is to read a proclamation relative to that. So I'm going to do that. We do it this time every year. Whereas trees provide many benefits, including reductions in heating and cooling costs, purification of the air we breathe, production of oxygen to offset harmful greenhouse gases, and provision of habitat for a wide variety of wildlife. And whereas the preservation of mature tree stands located within the city of Wildwood has always been a key element of the city's master plan. And whereas the city of Wildwood has adopted ordinance number 2286 requiring the protection and restoration of this community's largest grand trees in residential, commercial, and industrial developments and settings. And whereas it has been one of my goals to maximize the use of green space in the city's rights of ways, parks, and private developments, and the reaffirmation of the green space requirement of our original town center plan. And finally, whereas the city of Wildwood has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation for 13 consecutive years, and the city desires to continue with that designation for 2023. Now, therefore, it is hereby proclaimed that Friday, April 28, 2023 shall be Arbor Day in the city of Wildwood, Missouri, signed by me as mayor. So that will take care of our, this is our proclamation, and that will ensure that we continue to be a tree city. We have a couple of appointments that are on the consent agenda. Next is public hearings. We have one, PZ 1-23. Ms. Eldridge, would you please read that?
PZ 01-23, Joy A. Wilcox Living Trust, 17345 Manchester Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63038. A request for a change in zoning from the amended C8 Planned Commercial District, Town Center Historic Pond District, to the R1 1 acre Residence District, Town Center Historic Pond District, for a 1 acre tract of land that is located on the north side of Manchester Road, west of Pond Road, locator number 23W220207, street addresses 17345 and 17351 Manchester Road. Proposed use, all permitted uses being set forth in chapter 415.110 R1 1 acre residence district.
Thank you. Mr. Vinich, do you have anything you want to mention relative to PZ 1-23?
Mr. Mayor, with your permission, just a couple of brief comments, please. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, the Planning and Zoning Commission has provided for your consideration tonight its letter of recommendation. The letter of recommendation is favorable to the requested rezoning by Ms. Wilcox. This particular property is 1 acre in size, located in the Pond Historic District, and has a rich history along the portion of Route 66 that is within the city of Wildwood. The Planning and Zoning Commission identified 5 rationales to support the rezoning from the commercial district to a residential district to address Ms. Wilcox's desires. If there are any questions regarding the commission's action, the department would be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Before we get to that, we need to see if we have speakers. I believe we do have one.
Yes, Joy Wilcox.
Okay, Ms. Wilcox, would you like to come forward, please?
Good evening. I'm Joy Wilcox. I'm the owner of the property at 17345 Manchester Road and 17351. I've owned the property for 33 years, 22 on my own. This is the best for me now. I'm fortunate that this zoning district has this flexibility. What I would like tonight on item number 9 on the agenda is the first reading. I am requesting the second reading tonight also. I've spoken to Joe about this. I have some things going on in my life right now that I would like to get this wrapped up, if at all possible, tonight. It was passed unanimously with planning and zoning, and I'd like to move it forward tonight with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Any questions for Mr. Vinich? Councilmember Edens.
Okay, I did look at the memo. I did look at the explanations from planning and zoning, but a verbal recap would really help me because I understand that the history of this land and how it's been used as both commercial and residential. Can you give me a verbal rundown of why this is needed and why she cannot just continue to use it the way she pleases? Because of the history of the site, is that because it would be non-conforming and does she prefer it to just be residential? And the reason I ask this is because in my experience on this council is even though the commission did cite that if somebody wants it to be commercial in the future, they could request that change back. It's very rarely do we go from residential back to commercial. And once we have commercial, it's something I don't necessarily want to lose because it's such a limited landscape. So I'm not trying to get in the way of anything. I just want to understand the reasoning for why this is needed.
So Mr. Vinich, in a couple of sentences, could you answer Councilmember Eden's question? Why is this needed?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll do my best. Ms. Edens, I think more so than anything, it's just a reflection of the dual use of the property over the same span of time that Ms. Wilcox has owned it, both residential and commercial. In the Pond Historic District, either one can be a primary use or combined together. And in this particular case, I think the commission was just looking at the request from the property owner and trying to address it as best they could. Thank you.
Okay, so it's not that it needs to change, it's just that it was requested.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, just real quickly, Mr. Bunich, is there any positive or negative effects associated with this change, considering that this is a historic property? In other words, if it gets changed to 1 acre residential, and the will be demolished in the future and something else go up any more easily?
Mr. Vinich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Rambo, I don't think there's a risk to the city per se. If you've tracked this property over the ownership of Miss Wilcox, all she's done is improve it each and every year. She's been very judicious on the leasing of the property to commercial entities. I just see it as something that at this stage in Ms. Wilcox's ownership, she would like to just have a residential use. It obviously could potentially save her on her property taxes, which is based upon the use of property, not so much the zoning. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's an alternate way to get her tax relief without risking the potential future of this property, because it's been there forever, and I like it, and I don't think we want to lose any more of these historic types of buildings. If you don't feel it's a real risk, then I'm fine with that, but I'd like to hear you say it.
Mr. Benich, real risk or not?
I don't believe so, Mr. Mayor. I just have confidence in Ms. Wilcox and her children that they respect the property and recognize its role on Route 66 and in Wildwood.
Okay. That takes us to our second readings. So for the benefit of the scouts in the room who may not have been with us previously, and anyone else that may want to know why we go through readings, I just thought I'd mention a couple of things about what you're going to see here over the next few minutes. So when legislation comes to the city, it has to go through two readings. And the reason it has to go through two readings is to allow the public the opportunity to comment. So we're going to have some bills that are first, we're going to start with bills that have already been read once, for example, at the last meeting. We're going to read those twice. And then after that, we're going to read some bills the first time. And you've heard during public comment some requests for bills to be read a second time tonight. If that happens, the council has to approve doing that by a supermajority 2/3 vote, because it would not be at the next meeting for the public to comment a second time. So that's what you're going to see unfold here. And I just wanted to explain that so that you could hopefully not have any confusion about all the readings and stuff. All right. And we're so glad you're here. Okay. So council members, we have three bills for second reading. 2774, 2775, and 2776. 2774 relates to the intergovernmental agreement between the city and St. Louis County. It affects all wards. 2775 relates to the new schedule of video provider franchise fees, also relating to all wards. And finally, 2776 relates to a contract with Todd Wagner and Associates for professional services relating to our watershed erosion endeavors. And that affects wards 4, 7, and 8. Would there be any objection to having these read in unison with a vote on all three at once? Okay, seeing none, bills 2774, 2775, and 2776 are before the council, and they concern the wards mentioned. Is there a motion for the second reading of the bills? Made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Nyan. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion for second reading of the bills, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2774, Bill 2775, and Bill 2776 a second time.
Bill number 2774, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute an amended and restated intergovernmental cooperation agreement by and between the city of Wildwood, Missouri and St. Louis County, Missouri for the housing of municipal inmates, second reading. Bill number 2775, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending section 635.030 of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, and providing for a new schedule of video provider franchise fees, second reading. Bill number 2776, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Todd Wagner and Associates LLC for professional services in support of the Watershed Erosion Task Force's efforts to develop options to retrofit and upgrade up to 7 basins located in the Calks Creek watershed, second reading.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lee, do you have any comments on the items from administration, bills 2774 or 2775?
I appreciate the consideration, Mr. Mayor, but at this time, no questions.
Okay, Mr. Benich, Bill 2776. Anything you
Mr.
want to
Mayor,
add?
oh, pardon my interruption, sir. My apologies. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I just want to let you know that 3 of the subdivisions we asked for cooperation. The 3 subdivisions have agreed: Copper Lakes, Harbors at Lake Chesterfield, and West Glen Farms, and we'd like to thank them tonight.
Absolutely. Any questions from any member of the council? Councilmember Flasher.
Is 2776 like a consultation type of thing again? In regards, no, this is actual work getting done. Great. No questions.
Okay, seeing nothing further, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll of the council for final passage of bills 2774, 2775, and 2776.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian, Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo, Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano,
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Rose,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani.
Yes.
Okay, the bills have passed and once signed will be in effect. As I mentioned in the work session, under new business first readings, we have Bill 2783 that concerns the approval of a record plat relating to Wesley Park at Ward 8. 2784 pertaining to the vacation of two 15-foot wide utility easements in Ward 1. 2785, the boundary adjustment plat relative to the enclaves of Foxhaven and Ward 6. 2786, as I mentioned earlier, we'll come to later. Bill 2787 relating to an agreement with Doring Engineering for updating Center Avenue engineering plans and so forth in Ward 8. Bill 2788 relating to an agreement with Horner and Schifrin, for surveying, engineering, and preparation of final design plans for left turn lanes along State Route 100 that we also talked about in work session, and that pertains to wards 1 and 6. Bill 2789 relating to updating our liquor code affecting all wards. We also discussed that in work session. And finally, a bill that's been presented by the department relating to the public hearing that we just had, Bill 2790, that pertains specifically to a change in zoning from C8 to 1 acre residential, and that is in Ward 1. Would there be any objection to the reading for the first time of these bills in mass? So essentially all of the first readings except the bills for first reading except for Bill 2786. Any objection to that? All right. Seeing none, is there a motion for the first reading of bills 2783, 2784, 2785, 2787, 2788, 2789, and 2790? Made by Councilmember Flasher, seconded by Councilmember Ottenberg. All in favor of the motion for first reading, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read the bills.
Bill number 2783, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the approval of a record plat, trust indentures, and a deposit agreement which guarantees required improvements for a 4-lot residential subdivision located on attractive land in the north half of the northwest quarter of Section 12, Township 44 North, Range 3 East, City of Wildwood, St. Louis County, Missouri, specifically located on the east side of Center Avenue, south of Manchester Road, and hereafter to be known as Wesley Park. First reading. Bill number 2784, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute any documentation which thereby vacates two 15-foot wide utility easements associated with Wild Horse Spring Farm, Plat 4, Lot 15, and Wild Horse Spring Farm, Plat 4, Lots 8 and 16, and a common ground boundary adjustment inclusive of Lots 8 and 16 of the boundary adjustment consolidation recorded in Plat Book 369, page 315, with all generally addressed as 311 Larimore Valley Drive. First reading. Bill number 2785, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing a boundary adjustment plat between 3 lots identified as part of the southeast quarter of Section 31 and part of the southwest quarter of Section 32, Township 44 North, Range 3 East of the 5th Principal Meridian, located on the north side of Model Realty Road, west of Wild Turkey Lane, and to be hereafter known as Enclaves at Foxhaven, Plat 2. First reading. Bill number 2787, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into a consultant service agreement with Doring Engineering Incorporated for the update of Center Avenue engineering plans and the preparation of bid specifications for its improvement to a town center area roadway standard. First reading. Bill number 2788, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a city consultant agreement with Horner and Schifrin Incorporated for surveying, engineering, and preparation of final design plans and specifications for a capital improvement project constructing left turn lanes on State Route 100 at the intersections of Booness Lane, Manchester Road, Woodland Meadows Drive, Hinkin Road, and Windy Hollow Lane, Hawks Rest Road. First reading. Bill number 2789, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending Title VI of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Wildwood by deleting Chapter 600 in its entirety and enacting in lieu thereof a new Chapter 600 and regulating the manufacture and sale of alcoholic beverages within the city. First reading. Bill number 2790, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing a change in zoning from the amended C8 Plain Commercial District to the R1 1 acre residence district upon a property that is 1 acre in size located on the north side of Manchester Road, west of Pond Road, within the town center area, with such action being consistent with the letter of recommendation submitted by the Planning and Zoning Commission that is dated March 6, 2023. First reading.
Mr. Dinich, do you have anything you want to mention relative to bills 2783, 2784, 2785, 2787, or 2790?
No, Mr. Mayor, but the department is available for any questions or comments the city council may have in their regard. Thank you, though.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions for Joe or comments on any of those? Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a note on Bill 2785. I don't know if you used the agenda to make the minutes from or not, but the township was read as 44 North. And so but it says 45 North on the minute, on the agenda. And so if it needs to be adjusted when the minutes are made.
So the inconsistencies between the agenda and what? Oh, the actual bill. Yeah, gotcha. Mr. Vinich, do you know which is correct?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have the plat in front of me. I apologize, but we'll certainly make that change to what is defined on the plat prepared by the surveyor. My apologies.
Well, I had planned to discuss a second reading on that tonight. Yeah. My understanding is it's 44 on the plat.
And if
So that means that the agenda is incorrect and that the plat. Yeah, it's 44, township 44. Thank you, Councilmember Clark. So City Attorney Young, given that the agenda has been published, what is your recommendation as to the modification of 45 to 44 relative to Bill 2786 in the township?
The bill itself is accurate, and with that Scrivener's error correction, it's prepared for second reading.
Okay, that's fine. So make sure. Thank you, Councilman Clark. Any other council members have any questions on those bills or comments? Okay, Rick Brown, do you have anything you want to mention, Mr. Brown, relative to bills 2788 or 2789?
Mayor Boland, thank you. I have nothing additional for the council, but available for any questions. I would also mention that Joe would be available as well for the Center Avenue, as he's been involved in that one.
Okay. Any questions from any member of the council relative to that? Okay, so now let's talk about second readings. So we had some requests this evening, and I've talked with our city administrator and city clerk relative to a couple others, and I just want to kind of run down this and gauge the lay of the land with you before I make a suggestion that I'm getting ready to make. So we have Bill 2783, the item relating to the approval of the record plat in Ward 8 that I think would be viable for a second reading. We have Bill 2784, the vacation of the two utility easements that would be viable for second reading this evening. Bill 2785, the boundary adjustment plat for the enclaves at Fox Haven Ward 6. We had a request with no objection from the department for a second reading for that item. we're going to talk about Bill 2786 in a moment. The next two, 2787 and 2788, have monetary implications. Certainly the wish of the council, we can do those if you want, but my preference is with those because of the monetary implication, not doing second readings this evening. That takes us to Bill 2789, which is our liquor license update that affects all wards. It would probably be a good idea to get that in place sooner rather than later. So my thought would be that could be viable for second reading. And then finally, Bill 2790, and that was requested by Ms. Wilcox, I believe with no objection from the department, for a second reading on that. So my question to the council is, would there be any objection if you are inclined to have a second reading on these bills, that be done in mass with those bills? Councilmember Farmer.
I don't necessarily have an objection. I just have a question on one of them.
Okay, what is the question?
I am still sort of unclear why we're changing the zoning on Ms. Wilcox's property.
Okay, Mr. Benich, can you please explain further why we're planning to potentially change the zoning on this relates to Bill 2790 on Ms. Wilcox's property?
Again, Mr. Mayor, I'll do my best. Councilmember Farmer, first and foremost, Ms. Wilcox is the individual property owner that approached the city and requested the change. Obviously, the property has dual use and has since her ownership now 33 years ago. In terms of its impact on the commercial designation or the commercial inventory of properties in the city, I think it's important to note that in the ordinance, the language does speak to the fact that it could be changed back at any time through the rezoning process, given that it is part of the Pond Historic District, which for all intents and purposes allows a full and broad range of uses on individual properties or collectively as the district itself. More so than anything, again, Ms. Wilcox has asked for that particular change. Ms. Wilcox fought hard to have the property zoned commercial. And in this particular instance, the department believes that it's in the best interest of the city to address the property owner's concerns.
If you would prefer not to have a second reading on that now, we don't have to do that. Or we can vote on that separately for second reading.
It done. I will. Okay, we can move forward.
Okay. All right. So is there any objection if someone wants to make a motion to having a second reading this evening on bills 2783, 2784, 2785, 2789, and 2790? Councilmember Flasher.
I'm fine making the motion.
Okay. In mass. Okay. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Galani. And this will take a 2/3 supermajority vote. We'll try it by voice to see where that goes before we do something else if we have to. All in favor of the motion for second reading of the bills indicated, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read bills 2783, 2784, 2785, 2789, and 2790 a second time.
Bill number 2783, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the approval of a record plat, trust indentures, and a deposit agreement which guarantees required improvements for a 4-lot residential subdivision located on a tract of land in the north half of the northwest quarter of Section 12, Township 44 North, Range 3 East, City of Wildwood, St. Louis County, Missouri, specifically located on the east side of Center Avenue, south of Manchester Road, and hereafter to be known as Wesley Park. Second reading. Bill number 2784, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute any documentation which thereby vacates 2 15-foot wide utility easements associated with Wild Horse Spring Farm, Plat 4, Lot 15, and Wild Horse Spring Farm, Plat 4, Lots 8 and 16, and a common ground boundary adjustment inclusive of Lots 8 and 16 of the boundary adjustment consolidation recorded in Plat Book 369, page 315, with all generally addressed as 311 Larimore Valley Drive. Second reading. Bill number 2785, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing a boundary adjustment plat between 3 lots identified as part of the southeast quarter of section 31 and part of the southwest quarter of section 32, township 44 north, range 3 east of the 5th principal meridian, located on the north side of Model Realty Road, west of Wild Turkey Lane, and to be hereafter known as Enclaves at Fox Haven, Plat 2, second reading. Bill number 2789, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending Title VI of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Wildwood by deleting Chapter 600 in its entirety and enacting in lieu thereof a new Chapter 600 and regulating the manufacture and sale of alcoholic beverages within the city, second reading. Bill number 2790, an ordinance of the City of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing a change in zoning from the amended C8 Planned Commercial District to the R1 1-acre Residence District upon a property that is 1 acre in size, located on the north side of Manchester Road, west of Pond Road, within the town center area, with such action being consistent with the letter of recommendation submitted by the Planning and Zoning Commission that is dated March 6, 2023, second reading.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the bills or any questions from any member of the council? All right, seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of the bills.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian. Yes. Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the bills have passed and once signed will be in effect. That leaves Bill 2786. Is there a motion for the second reading of Bill 2786? Made by Councilor McCutcheon. Is there a second? Second, first reading. Who made the first motion? I'm sorry. Councilor McCutcheon, and you're seconding. Okay, Councilmember Flasher. All in favor of the motion for Bill 2786 to be read a first time, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Just one moment. Please proceed with the reading as approved by the council.
Bill number 2786, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into a city contractor agreement with Ideal Landscaping Group for the development of a hardcourt area and community park, southern end of the Great Meadow area, as indicated in the bid documents and specifications, including the base proposal and add alternate number 1 in accordance with documentation submitted in response to the city's advertisement in this regard, first reading.
Councilmember Farmer.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone so we can discuss the idea that we were bringing up in work session about perhaps an alternate location.
Okay, and so postponement would probably be to the June meeting to allow that discussion at work session to happen at the May meeting. Is that what you're thinking?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So postponement to the June meeting, and if this passes, we would, Ms. Eldridge, put this on the work session agenda for action at the next meeting.
Do you want it to, do we want to go to committee real quick, or do we want to do it as a whole group?
Given, well, that's up to the council. My thought is, given that this is fairly refined at this point and it's been through that process and we're really down to, you know, essentially a location where, you know, that probably leaving it at the council level.
That's
we
fine.
might be doing a little committee work, but not much.
Sure.
And if it gets out of control at work session, we can always make a motion to refer to a committee. So, but I don't anticipate that happening. Is there a second to the motion to postpone? Seconded by Councilmember Flasher. So discussion is on the motion to postpone. Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, I'm against postponing this for a couple different reasons. One, the master plan for the community park specifically suggests that we have these kind of amenities in the community park. The committee's put a lot of time and effort in this. We've made a lot of adjustments. And this is not just about pickleball courts. This is also about the basketball courts and the tennis courts. And I gathered that they're wanting to put the pickleball courts someplace else. That's what my understanding was. So I'm opposed.
Councilmember Flasher.
I'm for this, and main reason being when we started this whole idea, I guess, or thing, it was like half the cost. And I think by moving it here-ish, potentially, we're potentially saving money because we don't have to worry about all the amended soils and all the other type of stuff that we've been putting a lot of time and effort and money into. I know makes it like, oh, we wasted all of our time worrying about that stuff. But I mean, if we can cut the cost substantially, which I believe we could, if it's possible to put it in town center, then I think that's a win for the city because we get that money back. And that's why I'm for this postponement and trying to see if it's even an option. If it's not, obviously I'm going to be pushing for this to move forward again in June.
Councilor Garitano.
Yeah, I wanted to just comment on it. My concern about postponement is that every day we wait, the cost of materials is going to continue to go up. And so I feel the Planning and Parks Committee did a lot of work to get to this point. And there's a lot of excitement by people when they hear that these courts are coming where they've been proposed as of now. I totally get the town center idea. And my understanding is that as part of the public space requirement for the Greenberg project, that those courts that are being located there on Taylor Road will be for public use. Also, let's not forget too, we approved the new community church, their recreational area, which is right down Manchester Road, sort of diagonal from the church right there. They're also have stated that their courts are going to be for public use as well. So I think the community park helps spread out some courts across our city so they're not all concentrated in one specific area. So I would like to see the community park proposal continue to move forward.
Councilmember Dodwell.
I was proposing this because I feel like the cost is somewhat more than we should be spending, number one. And number two, having walked that park, having been on the park committee that helped with the design of this park, that space was supposed to be open for free play, picnics, open space. And I am just very concerned about the fact that it's planted so close to the edge of the creek. I was down there last week and looking at things, and that 50-foot differential between where the courts end and where the creek bed starts isn't a whole lot of space given our current erosion control issues that we're dealing with. And I don't want it to be floating down the creek in the next couple of years after we've expended these funds. So I'm going to have to vote that we postpone it and have some more detailed discussion on a better location. I appreciate the conversation regarding the fact that we have a couple of other locations for parks, but we've got a high concentration of residents where children can bike down to these town center much easier or walk to town center much easier. We've got businesses that are sitting here during the day absolutely dead for any shopping, any eating. That's why you're seeing things close. And so I'm thinking by having the pickleball courts right here in town center, our senior citizens, our folks that are available to avail themselves that during the daytime would be coming in and then grabbing a meal at some of these restaurants that need the business, and hopefully shopping at some of these shops that need the business during the daytime. So I'll have to cast my vote the way I said earlier.
Councilor Bartoni?
Thank you. I think ideally, the proposal that we have on the table, if that was in town center on city property, that would be ideal, but we don't have it. So that's why it was at the other location. That's where we can put it. So my concern is though, with the development, because the developments, if I'm thinking correctly, that's in the planning and zoning stage right now. Or is it even, it's like, it hasn't been approved by P and Z or anybody yet, has it? Or where's it at?
Mr. Vintage?
Mr. Mayor, with your permission, Mr. Bartoni, the Planning and Zoning Commission took final action on the proposal at its meeting a week ago from today. It will be at City Council in May in the form of a public hearing.
Okay, thank you. So, but Mr. Cohn and another gentleman took something to planning and zoning and council and it approved, and 3 years later, nothing happened. So, I mean, if we knew this was going to happen, and if he was taking what we did at the city park or community park and bringing it here with the tennis courts and the basketball courts, that it might be a little bit more palatable. But I mean, they have a little bit of a history of not following through and completing projects, and that's a little bit of a concern I have also. So I think that's something to consider. But my final question would be for Mr. Vunich, because I think Mr. Garitano brought up something that's worth considering. The bid itself is like, how long is that, the materials, like how long is that bid good for?
I believe, Mr. Bartoni, it's 60 days.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Rambo?
Yeah, if I'm not sure we can do this in work session. Does the act of deferring it to the work session include some more work by the Department of Planning and Parks to figure out the cost of the relative and figure out if there's another alternative? And
It would if this motion passed.
All right. Thank you.
Councilor Farmer?
Yeah, I hear everybody's concerns. I definitely understand them. I think, Councilmember Bartoni and I were probably the more vocal members of the council and some of the issues that were going on with the last development that was proposed. I think, I'm looking into this as a possibility. I don't know if it's going to be able to be done at all, but I think that it maybe will help to get a project moving forward if, we have some buy-in from the city and a private entity in terms of what can be done here. I mean, I don't want to have a city. I don't think anybody wants to have a city full of pickleball courts or anything else. We got lots of different opportunities to do things, but we talk a lot about trying to do smart development. And I think looking at what we can do as a city to work with the developers to encourage them to do some things in town center and perhaps influence more residents wanting to come here. I think it's at least worth having a conversation. If they're not interested, then that's okay. If it can't be done, that's okay too. But I think it's worth it with this amount of money on the table to have that conversation before we put it somewhere that is, we have the ability to put it, but is perhaps not the best fit in the world.
On postponement, Councilmember Edens.
I just wanted to explain my thought process because I've been torn on this project from the beginning, in that, like Councilmember Dodwell, I liked the field being open. I think this committee discussed, or Planning and Parks discussed something ad nauseum. We've discussed it in work session. At the time, they didn't find another place to put it. And I'm not sure that postponing it will help in that regard. And part of my concerns have been alleviated because since this was proposed initially, we have since had other parklands dedicated to the city. So there is now more new park space that will not have, courts put in for picnicking. I have been assured that it is far enough back from the creek bed, although I am, certainly still concerned of that. And yes, the sticker price tag on the one hand does have a shock value. But if you take a step back from it and go, okay, this is what, a $26 million municipal budget, and you're talking about something that provides recreational opportunity for the entire city and individuals that may come from other cities, and it's less than the cost of a house, on average in our community. When you put it that way, it's not as expensive as we think it is. So, I've got residents that spend, 100,000 at a time on just a house remodel, right? So, or more. So when you step back and look at what you're getting for that amount of money, it seems a little bit more reasonable, whether or not it's postponed or whether or not the sticker price is cut.
Councilor Bros.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I think the concept to postpone to explore the opportunity to improve traffic in town center is a must. I mean, we really need to do what we can to generate traffic. People may come down and actually become more aware of what town center even is. I think it's a very good idea, and to wait a month or two to explore that, I think is a short period of time.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further discussion, show of hands, all in favor of postponement to the May meeting with the concept of, or with the proviso, rather, that it will be the subject on the work session agenda, to the June meeting, and the with the proviso that we will discuss this during work session at the May meeting. Please raise your hand, all in favor. 1, 2, 5, 9. All opposed? 2, 3. Any abstentions? Motion to postpone carries. That takes us to the consent agenda. There are 2 items that I want to pull from that. The first is the appointment of Mr. Cohn based on a conversation I had with a councilor this afternoon, and we'll deal with that separately. His appointment to the ARB as the Planning and Zoning Commission liaison. He sits on P&Z. The second is Resolution 2023-4, indicated that this relates to the private street. I'm sorry.
Did we do the first reading of 2787 and 2788? We did. We just didn't do it. Okay.
Thanks for asking, though.
I'm awake now.
You got to keep me in line. You could have been right. So no, I'm glad to get those questions. All right. So, and I'm also going to pull 2023-4, if there's no objection, off the consent agenda, because this relates to the item, the resolution that the city attorney is going to work with the residents and the city team to try to craft something that's palatable. So why don't we handle resolution 2023, because that would be the next item on the agenda. 2023 that's wrong. The appointment would be the first next item on the agenda. The appointment of Mr. Khan as the Planning and Zoning Commission liaison to the ARB. So Mr. Khan, who's been around our city for some time and sits on Planning and Zoning Commission, this is the P&Z Commission has a liaison to that board, and he is my recommendation for that. He currently serves in that capacity. So I would be happy to entertain any questions. Otherwise, I would ask for a motion to approve that appointment. Councilmember Nyan. Okay, seconded by Councilmember Clark. Any discussion on the motion?
Mayor.
Councilor Bertolini.
Quick question. Is that a voting position or just a consultant?
I believe it is now a voting position. Although in respect to any member of that board and Mr. Cohn being a member, if there is any item that comes before that board that relates to his projects, he would recuse himself, and he's done that consistently at the planning and zoning level, just FYI. Councilmember McCutcheon.
I'm the one who asked for it to be pulled out from the consent agenda, and my rationale for that is because he does have a project before planning and zoning, and he also sits in the architectural review board, which will be related to that project. And it's nothing against Mr. Cohn. I just am uncomfortable with that occurring. That's my rationale.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve Mr. Cohn's appointment to ARB as the liaison from P&Z, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any other opposed? Any abstentions? The minutes will reflect Councilmember McCutcheon is opposed. That takes us to resolution 2023-4. This is the item relating to the alleys, and a postponement would allow for further discussion and action by our city attorney and city team. Would there be a motion to postpone this to the next meeting made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Brost? Any discussion on the motion to postpone? See no discussion on the motion to postpone. All in favor of that motion to postpone, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that motion passes. So that leaves us with the minutes from, sorry, Councilmember McCutcheon. That's going to be on the consent agenda. That's okay. The consent agenda now includes the minutes from the March 13, 2023 work session and regular meeting, as well as the minutes from our special meeting on March 27, the approval of expenditures, the Watershed Erosion Task Force, reappointment of everyone who's on that. And by the way, the reason that's here is because annually we need to reappoint that board. And finally, resolution 2023-7, which relates to a city contractor agreement in relation to the Shawnee Mission, with Shawnee Mission Tree Service in relation to treatment of ash trees for $12,337.50. And that relates to all wards and is recommended by our Board of Public Safety. So that is the remaining consent agenda. Would there be a motion to approve the consent agenda? I'm sorry. Sure. What is your question? Mhm. Well, that's a great, we're going to make it easy for you. So that's a good point. We're going to pull the minutes from that so you can abstain. We'll do those separately. Would anyone like the minutes from March 13, 2023 meeting pulled? Do you want that pulled too? We'll do that separately. Okay. So thank you for bringing that up. No problem whatsoever. So I'm sorry. So that leaves the approval of expenditures, the reappointment of the Watershed Erosion Task Force members, and resolution 2023-7. Is there a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda as presented, made by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Councilmember McCutcheon? Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda as it now stands, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda is approved. That takes us finally to minutes. We have the minutes from the March 13, 2023 work session and regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented, made by Councilmember Farmer, second by Councilmember Flasher? Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Councilmember Galani will be shown as abstaining. Finally, the March 27, 2023 special meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes made by Councilmember Dodwell, seconded by Councilmember Farmer? Any discussion on the motion? See no discussion. All in favor of the motion to approve the minutes of that meeting as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have 3 abstentions, Councilmember Bartoni, Councilmember Flasher, and Councilmember McCutcheon. Any other abstentions? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. That takes us to miscellaneous. Councilmember Edens.
I have some joyous things to share with the council, and I did email Mr. Travis a picture for him to put up towards the end of the story, but not quite yet. So last time we talked about the joy of the city when we host events, that it allows us to make memories as families and communities. One such event was the Cabin Fever Hiking Challenge, and this does end with the city staff becoming involved. So I would like to share some dad-isms from my own father along the trail for your pleasure, and you will understand where all of my bad humor comes from. So about a quarter of the mile in, I got, are we there yet? So my childhood was fully paid back. And again, this is a 7-mile hike. Other things were, hey, Lauren, I bet you didn't know that about squirrels, and stick with me, I'll teach you. And oh, look, a dad bench. You said that bench wasn't for me, but I saw that bench and I was going to sit on that bench. And why are there so many switchbacks without more dad benches? Inquiring minds want to know. And the important part of this is I expect a courtesy vehicle to be at the bottom of the hill to take me back to my car, Lauren. Then there were some other musings, you know, I swear if the bridges were closer, we would get there faster. And I didn't sign up for this, but Dad, you did because you were on the emails. You did sign up for this hiking challenge. And then it was, where's the van, Lauren? And I said, well, why wouldn't it be more like an airport shuttle? But we decided it would in fact be a van. So then it was, well, I demand to talk to Joe Vunich because we should have been there by now. And I said, Dad, I'm pretty sure he didn't pick the path, but I encourage you to talk to your council representative, Don Bartoni, about your complaints. And so finally, Travis, would you put up the picture? Because ladies and gentlemen, my dad willed the city of Wildwood van into existence at the exact moment that we were on the last mile of that dang 7-mile hike on the way back to the car. Now, what are the odds that the van would be in the same area? And there it came with the lights flashing and the vehicle drove up and my brain broke as I looked at Stacy and Kristen and went, you gotta be kidding me. And then they felt bad for my dad and said, Mr. Edens, would you like a trip back to the car? And I said, do not offer this man a ride back. No. I have heard it for the last 5 miles. Where's the van, Lauren? Then there was a van, but nope, we had to finish it and earn our shirts. So thank you to the city staff for offering a courtesy vehicle at the bottom of the switchbacks. Noted and appreciated.
Anything else from Councilmember Farmer?
Yeah, I can't remember how we do this normally. I'm sure we might say something next week, but I think that this is Councilmember Bertolino's last full meeting as a council member. So I just wanted to thank him for his service. It's been a great pleasure.
No, that's not why. Anyone else? I think I saw Councilmember Clark.
Couple things. Firstly, just about the strategic plan and that people have thanked me for putting this together, but I just want to tell you that all I've done is just put it together on the computer. That everyone else, I mean, the mayor had this vision, and I think we have all together put it together so that it will help us go forward. And just thanking the staff, Joe Vunich and Rick Brown and Tom Lee and Megan for helping so much with this, because they're the ones that really have put it together and come up with all of the information that's on there, not me. Secondly, I think it's a good time after we have talked about the pickleball court so much tonight to mention that we have a need for a cost benefit sheet with our projects so that we can see from data why we need it and measurements to show us that we do need it, not just that people want it and maybe some people want it, some people don't, but we don't know where is that measurement of how many people have requested this. And so we can look at it and see, is it worth that money or not? Just a value added or not? That's all.
Thank you. Anything else? I have a couple of items real quickly. So there is an organization, you see this in my mayor's report, called Lafayette Mayors. It's essentially West County mayors. And we, through the effort of our city administrator, Mr. Lee, and some others, are going to have the Secretary of State, John Ashcroft, in the building this Friday, for the lunch. And we actually, so it moves around with different hosts. Manchester will do a Town and Country and so forth. So this is our time to host, and the host city gets to decide on the speaker, and we have a different variety of them. So he's going to be in the building for the lunch, and of course, just recently announced that he's going to be running for governor. And we've also just have had the current governor and the current lieutenant governor when we've hosted this. So it's really good for not only West County in general, but for the city to be on the map with these officials. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is really just a thanks to our interim city administrator, Tom Lee, for picking everything up and getting it organized and moving forward, I think without many, if any, hiccups. So thank you so much for that, Mr. Lee.
Appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Dodwell.
You brought in something that I meant to say too. I want to say thank you very much to the city staff and all of the participants who got the internet website up, got information that had been collected by the council members that were on that ad hoc committee for a while, posted. Our citizens are now informed. We have clearer information for them. We have more timely information for them. And that's all they were asking for. And to have the staff be able to pull that together in a matter of weeks after we'd been asking for it for a matter of years, says a lot to the staff in general and to some of the guidance that they now have. So thank you all very much, because I know it wasn't a one-person thing.
Thank you. And it was an effort. I think Travis was involved in that extensively. So we appreciate all that. Okay. Adjourn. Would someone like to make a motion? Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Flasher, non-debatable motion. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you so